Yeah. Hey, welcome to Operation End Times. I'm your Jedi warrior for Jesus, Ben Hellisted. And this is the continuation of the Vikings series, and I'm calling it Blonde Ambition. That video you were watching was a video that I put together back in the day. I loaded it up on YouTube on March 7th, 2007, but it was the Icer Air event in San Francisco where they put snow down a city street in 2005. Johnny Mosley and all sorts of people are out there. But my TV show at the time, Ottawa TV, we had our cameras out there and we were right there in the middle of all that action. But at the time, there was a band, the Atomic Blondes. I do believe they're still around. It was an all-female girl band, and they rocked. And they basically said, "Hey, Bent, use some of that footage you got from Icer Air and mix it up with our song "Fire Me Up" and put it on your TV show." And for the people of San Jose. Whew, yeah, brings back a lot of memories. Anyway, we're going to try and dive into the deep pool here with the Vikings. We had our prologue, and then we were talking about the ship's manifest. I was thinking a Viking ship almost looks like a church, like if you're looking at the top of the ship, like you're up in the crow's nest, the front of the ship, make sure I do this right, the front of the ship, the bow, that's kind of like the front of the church where the altar is, and then there's all the rows, the pews, but that's where all the Vikings would sit with their oars to row, and then of course the back of the ship, that's where the living quarters or the door of the church coming into the back of the church. But a church, you could call a church a flock. A pastor is a shepherd leading a flock, but you could also say, hey, it's a ship of fools, and they're all following somebody, blowing, some wind in their sails. I'm not a church hater, but I will be the first to tell you there's so much distortion and wasted time at churches, it's not funny, my friends. But the Vikings, there's this image in the cycles of time, in the changing of times, is as the ages meet, the waters meet, as above so below, Noah, flooding, a transitory event with a boat or a ship. But it's also, like in Revelations, the heavens opening up, and like in Isaiah, the heavens roll back and Lucifer comes on down, or Satan, something evil. But it's in Isaiah where they're talking about Lucifer, how you have fallen. But at the beginning of that, it sounds where it says, the heavens came down, the hills shook, and people ran with fear, But I think the Vikings kind of represent that same image, like, I did my own little drawing, but this is kind of like if you were standing on the shoreline and the Vikings were coming, their dragon-headed ships with their sails blowing into them, and the men going, row, row, and the drums, boom, 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 boom. If you were on the shore, you'd be like that dude right there. You'd be like, run, it's the Vikings, ah! See the imagery there? It's the same imagery. What I'm going to tell you is Vikings, they're not some super evil thing, but they've been painted that way with a paintbrush. It's all about perspectives, what's real. I've been doing a bunch of research on Vikings, but before I get to that, I want to just talk about the blondness. You know, from what my research has shown me, you know, blonde hair or red hair is a mutation of a gene where when you're in the womb, you get an extra dose of estrogen, and the one gene shuts off. When it turns on, it produces a chemical. Produces a chemical, eumelanin, and when that's produced, you end up with darker skin and darker hair. But when that gene, it's the MC1R, the melanocortin 1 receptor, when it gets turned off, it doesn't produce any eumelanin, but it makes Pheomelanin, and at that point you get either red or blonde hair. It's known as a ressesive gene. They say it's in the long arm of the 16th chromosome. You know, the 44 again. You know, is that just by chance? They were saying people with blonde hair or red hair are more sensitive to get skin cancer, and they've got this recessive gene, and it makes them more sensitive to pain from burning or freezing. They need 19% more anesthesia. And I can almost attest to that, because my whole life when I go into a doctor, especially the dentist, they'd shoot me up and they'd be like, "Can you feel this?" I'd be like, "Yeah." I'd have them shoot me up 2-3 times before that stuff would kick in. And also it says they're more resistant to pain, like from a pinprick. You know, they have something in their skin that's like a painkiller. And you know, unfortunately, I'm not going to go too deep into this, but you know, the majority of the world has brown hair or black hair. So only 2% of the world has blonde hair, and probably even a smaller percentage has red hair. You know, in the Bible, you don't really hear too much about hair color, but Esau is said to have red hair. Adam means red. You know, there's a couple other people that got red, like Absalom had red hair. But red hair, you know, gets associated with a bunch of stuff too, you know, like evilness. But are people with red hair evil? No. But that's just the imagery, the guilt by association that's been put on red hair. You know, red hair, you know, we kind of view those people as gingers, you know. They're said to have fiery dispositions, but I don't think that's really true. But anyway, blonde hair to me, you know, when you look at blonde hair on planet Earth, it's a recessive mutation, and for some reason it just doesn't look like it belongs, because only 2% of the world has blonde hair. So I drew this map, and that kind of shows you the yellow lines represent where blonde hair is at, up over here. So around the Baltic Sea, you know, countries like Denmark, Germany, like right where Russia wants to take back over these countries over here, Latvia or whatever, but down here is Crimea that just got taken over by Russia. But it's like the blonde-haired people kind of migrated northward by chance, you know, but there's this super high concentration of blonde hair up over here, and it just doesn't seem natural. It's kind of like you take the Baltic Sea, and everybody around the Baltic Sea is like 70 to 90% blonde hair, and then it's like the rings get darker and darker as they resonate out from the Baltic Sea. This is like a close-up map of Israel. And once again, you know, like Israel is down here, Israel's right here. What's directly north of Israel is Mount Hermon and Damascus. And of course the sons of God came down on Mount Hermon and saw that the daughters of men were fair. Fair is a term that is used to describe people with blonde hair and blue eyes. You know, just as I was reading about hair color, it was saying in Egypt they sacrificed people with red hair to the god Isis. You know, in the constellations of Virgo, in the 12 stars that are in the crown, there's the constellation of Bernice, and Bernice was the wife of the Egyptian king Ptolemy III, and her constellation looks like a long blonde braid, and that's what she was known for, was her blonde hair. You know, I was researching blonde hair, and they said they found in the tombs in China, dated back almost 2,000 years when they opened up the mummies. They all had blonde hair. Now, just so you know, I'm not saying blonde-haired people are anything more special than anybody else, okay? But when I start talking about blonde people or Vikings, a lot of people seem to get their asses chapped. They're like, why are we even talking about this stuff? You know, like there's no point. And, you know, I don't know what to tell you, but that's where the winds of God are blowing me to look at, because there's something going on here. And it doesn't matter that I happen to be blonde hair and blue-eyed. If I was brown hair and brown-eyed, hopefully I'd be just as eager to learn what the truth is of what's going on here. But it's kind of like a couple of things. One, red hair and blonde hair in your hair is a genetic marker. Your eyeballs are genetic markers. You know, it starts telling you things, you know. That's a fact. As these sons of God came down on Mount Hermon, which was north of Israel, in the Bible, north is mentioned 153 times, and that's that connection to the lone pine cone of Jesus Christ. Jesus came from the north. He was from the Galilee, Sea of Galilee area. You know, there's all sorts of crazy stuff, because in the Sea of Galilee, there's a huge pile of stones. And then up in the Baltic Sea, there's a huge stone. You know, big round 200-meter stone that's buried at the bottom of the Baltic Sea, right there by Crimea. But the daughters of men were fair. Noah, you know, in the book of Enoch is described as having white hair and brilliant eyes. You know, could that be blue eyes? As he comes down off the mountain after the flood, God says, all the animals and beasts are going to be scared of you. You know, why would they? You know, but see, if you're blonde, if you've never seen a blonde person, you know, but like that might be a reason, you know, genetic marker. Now, I'm not saying that is the reason, but I'm seeing this correlation here. You know, in the patriarchal bloodlines of Cain, the third guy in, Cain's son was Enoch, Enoch's son was Irad. His name meant fleet, fleet as in boats, sailors. And that's where history takes you is, you know, there was northern Israel, there was southern Israel, but Damascus is where the Phoenicians were, and Damascus is right next to Mount Hermon. Beirut is the city right there on the ocean. Dan, the tribe of Dan, was on the shore. So, and Benjamin was kind of between Dan and Jerusalem. But these people were all seafarers. Cain was a wanderer, you know. But the Phoenicians were known for their boats. And, you know, you had the red hair people. The seraphim was kind of down in the land of Canaan. But all these people were wanderers that headed out by boat across the Mediterranean to islands like Cyprus and Crete and on to Greece and Italy and maybe even around the Horn to Ireland and England and over towards the Nordic Scandinavian countries. But I think there was also like a land route, which was people just marching north, you know, from Damascus up towards the Black Sea. Probably could go either left or right, but they probably went right, which is around by the Caucasus Mountains, which is where the Ukraine is, where all hell's breaking loose, where Russia is trying to, you know, grab back. You know, you can see this is the migration road around, you know, the far side, but that's around the Black Sea. They actually say the origin of blonde hair was just to the northwest of the Black Sea. I have it kind of marked in right there. Boom. You know, but I don't know. I don't think that's the origin. I'm thinking the origin is maybe down here on Mount Hermon, possibly. But when you look at blonde people, blonde ambition is actually brunettes who dye their hair blonde because they want to have the good life, because blondes have more fun. You know, blondes have permeated the world of mass media. You know, all the big stars dye their hairs blonde. You know, people with brunette hair or brown hair, they're beautiful too. I'm not trying to raise up blondes. I'm just saying blondes, for only being 2% of the earth, our hair is idolized and worshipped, and it's noticed. And, you know, a lot of the gods had blonde hair. Thor had blonde hair. Sith had blonde hair, but in the comic books she had dark hair, so we might get into that. I just found out an interesting fact. You know, I've followed Thor my whole life. I collected his comics as a kid, but I found out that, you know, Thor, the first year the comic came out was the year I was born, 1962. That's the year Stan Lee introduced it in the world of Marvel. But there's another example of synchronization of the ages and synchronizations to my life, because the Thorness has been in play. If you've been watching my videos for the last year or so, Nostradamus, the prophecy of Thor. I just bought a game. God, I'll have to go look at the title of it, but it's for the Xbox One. But it starts off where there's an Odin space station that crashes to Earth and unleashes this like Armageddon. It's called Call of Duty. That's what it is. But you know, once again, it's an Odin space station. So the Vikings are in play, past, present, and future. All right. Hey, Blonde Ambition. I'll probably have a part 2 to it coming out real soon. God bless you all. This is the Vikings.